Hi people. So this video is today is really just for the people that are looking at Michael Craig Martin and Juan Sanchez Cotan in their in their critical work. Um, and I'm going to talk about Michael Craig Martin's Eye of the Storm today. And so I'd like you to take some notes, and I'm going to talk about three different aspects of Eye of the Storm. Going to talk about his media, so his use of materials or media handling. Um, Also going to talk about the style, and we're going to talk about his use of colour. I will also send a video that I want you to watch along with this, and I may even send a newspaper article that's worth reading, but I've quoted a bit of it in the presentation. Um, so the important thing is that you guys take notes and then write these notes up in the sheet I will put in with the assignment for you. Okay, so take notes just now, then write them up into proper sentences after the video. Okay, let's get going. So we are talking about his techniques, right? So how did he go about making this? I think I might have just cut out there for a second. So sorry. We are talking about his techniques. Um, Michael Craig Martin started drawing objects like this. So everyday household, banal, you might say, objects in the 70s. And what he did was he just drew these simple minimal line drawings of them. Okay, now um, he's now got a big collection of these drawings. And so Eye of the Storm is made up of a bunch of different drawings put together. And Michael Craig Martin doesn't think of this then as a drawing or a painting. He thinks of it more as a collage. Even though we wouldn't really think of it as a collage, he thinks of it as a collage. He thinks it's like a collection of drawings, of separate drawings that are brought together to make something new. So that's one thing we can say about the way he thinks about the way he works, and also what we can say is that one modern, he's been working since the 70s, but one more modern thing that we've got that he finds very useful is using the computer and using cut and paste. So essentially, to see what his work might look like before he makes it, he takes the separate drawings in digital form and he puts them together on the computer so he can have a look at it that way. That means he can make, what he says is he can make hundreds and hundreds of versions of compositions before he decides which is the best one. So using the computer to try out his ideas and to put compositions together, much the same way that I ask you to put different compositions together before you make your final piece in your expressive unit. So he uses a computer for that. In the video I'll send you out, you see how what he actually uses to draw his lines with. If you notice that all the objects have got black outlines, he uses tape. Apparently he's been using that since the 70s as well. So he places tape down for the lines, and he feels that that makes it more than just a mark. He's like actually laying down the lines, and he thinks. See, Michael Craig Martin started as a sculptor, and I think he really likes to, despite the fact that his work looks very much like drawing and painting, he likes to think of it as sculpture. They're very, very big. We know that, and so I think this adding, like building up tape, kind of makes him think of it being more like a bit of sculpture. I'm going to show you a quote from Michael Craig Martin just now. And I'll read it out. This is from a Guardian article about him that I can send you. All of the painting is done with 4-inch rollers. We have almost eliminated the brush. The drawing is done with tape or the removal of tape, so the paper is like a stencil and the painting is done in flat areas. Rolling gives you a very even colour and can take many layers. In one painting there are 20 or 30 colours. Often the entire canvas has to be painted a certain colour to produce one section. You need 5 or 6 coats for each colour, so sometimes there are 40 coats. So what can we get from that? Well, we've already taken that he uses tape to form the outlines of his drawings. Okay, now, you obviously want to say something further about that, so I've already told you that this makes Michael Craig Martin consider it to be a bit more than a drawing, almost closer to sculpture, But another thing you could say about that is that tape will give you a very, very, very clean edge, very precise edge. What we also know from reading this is that he uses the tape as a stencil. And he also seems to use paper like a stencil as well. So he stencils off areas to paint them in. We know that he doesn't just paint inside the lines he creates. He says sometimes he has to paint the whole canvas just to paint one section a certain colour. So we know that he's building up layers and layers of colours and stenciling bits off as he does that. The other thing that we know is that say he, for example, has got a red section and needs to paint green over it. If you paint just a thin layer of green over that, you're going to get what's called optical mixing. The red and green are going to seem to mix and create brown, and he wants to avoid that, obviously. So what he does is he builds up layers and layers and layers of colour. Now, my understanding was that he used acrylic paint because that's what I've read. But I've read some other things saying that he uses household paint. We'll talk about that, I suppose, when we talk about colour a little bit more. But you have to know what kind of materials he's dealing with. So I think it's fair to say it's either, choose one, right? Don't say it's either, but say he's using acrylic paint to make his work. Or you can say that he's using household paint. I think if he's using household paint, that seems to fit his kind of work a lot better for me, because he, it's all these like day-to-day, mundane, everyday household objects he's painting, so it would make sense that he might use household paint for that. So that's a bunch of ideas for you. So I want you to get 3 comments that you can make about his use of materials from that. Okay, thanks. I'm not finished, by the way. I'm just changing slides. So I'm going to talk about style, the next slide. So first thing to say about his style is that Michael Craig Martin is most closely related to the pop artists. He, like I say, started working in the 70s, maybe it was the 60s in fact, when he was studying. And he studied alongside a lot of pop artists, and he went to see them when they were just starting. And he studied at Yale in America, which is quite close to New York. So he got to see lots of big artists like Andy Warhol, Robert Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns. These are all big pop artists, right? So that's where he comes from. But what else makes it pop? Well, there's two other things. The use of colour. Okay, so these very, very bright, you could almost say garish colours. Very, very bright and vibrant colours, that we relate that to pop art. We could also say that the choice of subject matter is pop art as well. So pop art famously took images from our everyday lives rather than things that are considered traditionally beautiful or meaningful. Pop sort of did away with that and just took things that people are used to seeing around them all the time. And so that's what Michael Craig Martin has done here. So one thing we can say about his style, it's definitely pop art. Another thing we can say about his style is something that Michael Craig Martin says about his own style. And that is, right, now try and follow this, that is that he tries to draw without a style. Now, what he means by that is that often artists, when they draw, have got a style. And you can recognise their drawing. No matter what the subject matter is, you can recognise the drawing because of that artist's style. Michael Craig Martin was just trying to draw very precisely, but without indicating any style. So it's just precise, and it's quite minimal, but it's almost like you can't tell it's him. It's almost anonymous, the style of it, right? Because there's no flourishes, there's no expression. There's nothing about the style. He's not stylized it in any way. It is just straightforward. But he's been doing this, like I say, since the 70s. So another thing that Michael Craig Martin says is that he now people have started associating this, what he calls a non-style, with his style. Okay, so the essential point is that the way he draws, he's tried to remove the idea of style from his drawing. But having done it for so long, it's now regarded as being his style. Now, I asked you to find 3 comments for each of these. So there's one more thing we can say about his style, and that is that it is minimal, in that it only gives you the smallest amount of information you need, to tell you what the object is and to give you an idea of its form. Okay, he doesn't add any extra information apart from that. So he tells us a little bit about the 3D kind of nature of the object, and he tells us a little bit about and that's it, and we recognize the objects, but he doesn't give anything extra. So what we can say is this is minimal. He is drawing the minimal amount that he needs to do in order to communicate his ideas to us. So there's 3 things to say about style. And the last aspect I'm going to talk about is colour. Generally, probably the one that everybody feels most comfortable talking about. And I'm sure you guys have all got plenty you could say about the colour of this, but I'll just give you 3 ideas, okay? So the first thing to say is that his use of colour is non-representational, right? It doesn't reflect reality, so the word is non-representational. Now, in the video, I've actually looked at 2 videos, so I'm hoping that the one I send you has this, but I'll send the other one next week. What he talks about is that when people often ask Michael Craig-Martin, how do you choose your colours? Your colours are wonderful, right? And he says, well, he doesn't plan it out. He just starts painting, right? And what he does is he selects his first colour. He decides he's going to paint, the majority of one object this colour. So say, let's look at the pink light bulb, for example, right? So Michael Craig-Martin looks at his light bulb and he thinks, what colour will I paint it? And he decides pink. It's after he paints that pink that he is then able to make decisions about the other colours in that object and then the rest of the drawing. So what we can say about his colour choices, it's not based on reality, but it is based on how the different colours look together. So he's not thinking about reality, he's actually thinking more kind of about abstract ideas when he does that. It's not about representing reality, it's about what effect do these different colours have together. And we can see that there's lots of harmony and contrast in there. We'll come to that again in a sec. Another thing we can say about the colour is that he doesn't mix it. Now, one thing I encourage you guys to do, because I want you guys to paint very realistically, so I encourage you guys to mix colours, and I want to see in your paintings, I generally want to see lots of different versions of colours rather than just flat the same colour. I want to see light versions, dark versions, but also want to see them slightly, adapted with bits of other colours in them. Michael Craig-Martin is the opposite of that. Michael Craig-Martin paints what we call straight from the tube, so he doesn't mix colours. You can see this in his work. Look at the inside of that bucket is green, the body of the fan is green, and the top of the shoe, the sandal, is green as well, but they're all exactly the same green. If they look at all different, it's because of the other colours surrounding them, but the fact that they all touch a bit of red helps us see them. So he uses colours straight from the tube, no colour mixing, and I think that relates back to his idea of mass production and he's using the paint as it comes from the factory. He's not bringing any of his artistic skills into it. He's using the mass-produced paint as it comes. So the fact he's using it straight from the tube kind of relates to his ideas a wee bit. What else can we say about his use of colour? Well, we can say it's very bright. Okay, I mean, it's there to clearly dazzle you. This one's called the Eye of the Storm, and what we spoke about last week was that it's a bit confusing to look at, and I think his use of colour doesn't help. With the confusion, it adds to the confusion, doesn't it? It's that big whirlwind of energy and colour and chaos. So what we can say is his use of colour is bright. It's very vibrant. You could even say garish, G-A-R-I-S-H. That's when colours are so bright they become a little bit too much. And I think that's, in a sense, what he's going for. I don't think that's necessarily a criticism here. And also he's thought about contrast and harmony. So you're welcome to go through and identify that, we've got lots of green beside red and orange beside blue to give us a feeling of contrast, but we've also got greens beside blues and oranges beside reds to give us a sense of harmony as well. So he's thrown both in there. Now, I think if you're using this variety of colours so closely together and flat colour, it's probably quite difficult to avoid contrast and harmony, but I think it's still worth mentioning it because it shows the marker that you know what these things are. one of the things Michael Craig Martin says in one of his videos as well is that there's only one object in this that he's not painted any colour. He's painted it, but he's painted it white. And that's behind the bucket. It's a torch. And interestingly, well, you might find it interesting. I think it's interesting in an odd way. Michael Craig Martin says that he's painted that torch in lots of different versions of lots of different pictures, with other objects and by itself. And he says, and so, with other objects, he usually changes the colour around. But with this torch, apparently, the only colour he can bring himself to paint it is white. It's the only colour that makes sense to him for this torch. Make of that what you will, or completely ignore it because you don't really need to say it, because I've given you plenty of other things to say. But there you go. It's a wee bit of gives you an insight into the man's mind, shows you that he might just be crazy after all. But yeah, Michael Craig Martin struggles to paint, he just doesn't paint the torch any other colour apart from white. It's worth looking around at his other work to get an idea of it, but like I say, I'll post you a video and that'll give you an idea. And if you're extra lucky, I'll post you this Guardian article as well, because Michael Craig Martin talks about his process in it and it might be quite useful for you. Okay, people, now remember, what I'd like you to do now is make some notes based on what I've said, but you can rewind this video and that might help you make the notes. Sorry, you've made your notes. Yeah, you can rewind the video to add to your notes, but now I want you to write the notes up. So I'm really looking for more properly structured sentences here, because this is you now kind of practicing the kind of things you're going to say in this exam. Okay, so I've sent you a sheet to fill in your comments onto. Just send me any questions. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Bye.